PlayStation VR finds itself in a very interesting position. Not only is it in a good position from a strategic financial standpoint, but it's also at the point where all eyes are on it. The Oculus Rift has released, the HTC Vive has released and has wowed a lot of people, but according to Sony, there are 40 million PlayStation 4 owners out there. And each one of those PlayStation 4 units is capable of VR. So Sony finds itself with at least the smallest hill to climb in terms of getting VR in people's living rooms. So how does this first iteration stack up? Well, there's some good and some bad. Let me start with the good stuff. If you're a hardware nerd like I am, this is a nice headset. This is a good, solid, well-built VR headset. While it's majoritively plastic, it's light and it's really comfortable. Personally, I think this is the most comfortable of the VR headsets. I do use all of them, so I am speaking with some experience. It goes on your head sort of like a stretchy headband, and then the actual display part inches in and out, almost like if you're at the eye doctor. It feels like an eye testing exam. And it's light, it's weighted, it's balanced. There's sensors in the front and the back, so the tracking is actually pretty decent here. And I think in terms of actual setup and general accessibility and ease of use, PlayStation VR does have it going on. While technically it does have as many cables and complications as the Vive or the Rift, the setup process and experience is really nice, and it just works. And you're not fiddling with PC issues, you're just fiddling with your PlayStation 4 like normal. That is the first in many steps that isn't going to scare people away from VR. I think that's its biggest accomplishment, but it does do some other things pretty well. The actual display itself is fairly decent. While there is a screen door effect, slightly more noticeable maybe than the Vive and the Rift, and the actual field of view within the display is a noticeable amount of degrees shorter, it still works and it's an effective experience. While you're not completely 1000% immersed into the world, I'm not gonna bullshit you, it is effective. And honestly, that's what I was hoping, because I went into the PlayStation VR, to be honest, not with very high expectations. I expected this thing to be a piece of garbage, but thankfully, it does the job when it comes to just raw, straight up VR stuff. I'll get more onto the games in a little bit, but I do want to talk about what I think are probably the biggest drawbacks to the PlayStation VR, and that is some of the control aspects. Now, you can use a DualShock 4 controller for many experiences, and that's all fine and well and good, but for the actual real VR experiences, with the closest things that will come to actual hands in a virtual reality game, you use PlayStation Move controllers, which, I don't know if you know, is technology that is very, very old now. And I think that's pretty clear. I think that is the biggest drawback, because the tracking on these things isn't always great. Of course, the amount of distance between you and the PlayStation camera and the lighting in the room all varies, but overall, I just never could get the hand tracking to be absolutely perfect. In a game in virtual reality, a lot of times your hands are constantly shaking and jittering because the tracking is not that accurate, and that takes me out of it. Sometimes it works better than others, but it's just still hit or miss, so I have to acknowledge that, and I gotta ding them for that. And I think that really just comes down to the fact that they used these PlayStation Move trackers and the PlayStation camera, which are technology that might be great, but aren't suited exactly specifically for VR. And unfortunately, I do think it shows in the experience. I do think PSVR has a leg up on one thing that I think people are really going to enjoy, and that's just a general out-of-box experience. If you get the actual bundled PlayStation VR thing, you get a VR demo disc that comes with experiences of almost all the launch games that PSVR has, as well as VR Worlds, like a $40 game, but it is a free pack-in that gives you a bunch of different varied VR experiences, such as London Heist, which you've probably seen shown off heavily at E3 and stuff like that. There's also an underwater experience, a downhill luging, and you also get another free download of Playroom VR, which is like these little mini-game experiences using the camera, and you can actually interact with other people in the living room with you, and that's a lot of fun. The whole social experience with this headset is great because it automatically outputs the video to the screen with sound, so everyone else can watch what you're doing. So just by you picking this thing up and right out of the box, there's a surprising amount of things to play and introduce you to VR, something that I do think is a leg up over what Oculus and Vive offered. But I did manage to get my hands on a ton of other games, and some of them are actually pretty promising. I gotta say, I'm kind of impressed. Batman Arkham VR is an awesome freaking virtual reality experience. Okay, it's $20, it's rather brief, but it gives you a lot to kind of dick around with and pretend to be Batman, and overall the visual fidelity and the graphical quality is damn good. I am genuinely surprised. This game has full production values. I am completely biased because I'm a diehard Batman fan, so I do have to acknowledge that, but it is really, really good. Here They Lie also seems like a very interesting horror slash surrealist experience that is an actual tangible full video game that you can play through, and in the first few hours there's a lot of great visuals and some good ass jump scares that actually really work. I don't know if that's gonna outstay its welcome at all, but so far it's a really cool game. There's also Riggs, which is kind of a mix between Rocket League and Titanfall, and it's a lot of fun, but it's worth noting that it's also the first VR game I've ever played that made me feel sick. The one game that I thought was a major letdown was Drive Club VR, because it's not just Drive Club the game ported into a VR headset. They built a whole new little game that works for VR, and it feels like crap. It feels like an old racing game, and it's just not good. I've played better racing games in VR like Dirt Rally, and Drive Club VR unfortunately does not stack up at all. But the launch lineup and the launch experience is really good here. There's a lot of games to play that will keep you busy for a while, and you're going to have fun. But while PlayStation VR is in a better position, it still hits the same exact wall that the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive hits. Is this thing gonna last? Are developers going to keep making good games for this? Plus, we have the added caveat with Sony. Are they going to continue supporting it? Because my Vita is sitting over there collecting dust. But it's just a very expensive experience because you buy the thing and then you also have to buy the games for it. And it adds up. I will say that the bundle is a good value compared to the regular just buying the headset on its own. There's a lot in that bundle and you get the most for your value. But at the end of the day, with VR, I still struggle with actually recommending it to anyone because is it really gonna last and is it going to take off and are you gonna like it? It's something that you absolutely have to try before you buy, because I know a lot of you guys are probably gonna comment on this video and say, hey, VR fucking sucks, I hate it, but you've never actually tried it. You just think that's this overhyped thing, and I completely understand. So no, I no way in hell, like with the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive, I can't tell you guys to go run out and buy it immediately, because number one, you may not like it and it might not be for you. Number two, it's really expensive, and the question is this just gonna sit on your shelf after 2 months after you play all the launch games? Is anything else really gonna come out for this thing that's truly worth experiencing and worth plunking down so much money for in the first place? Even though at the end of the day, I do really love VR. I want VR to be great. I have a ton of fun with it. I spend a lot of time with it. But for somebody out there who really has to pick and choose what they want to buy, there's still a lot of questions out there with PlayStation VR and VR in general. Is it a ton of fun? Yes. Do I really like it? Yes. Am I surprised that the PlayStation VR isn't a piece of crap and actually holds a candle to Rift and Vive? Yeah. But if you are into this, think hard about this. I hope what I said can help you make the decision for yourself. You guys know the deal though. I will be in the comments and I'll also be on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram answering your questions about this stuff. I can't talk about all the games, but if you have questions about some of the games, ask me over there. You guys know the deal though. Clicking the like button helps us out a ton. We really appreciate it. It lets us do awesome hardware videos like this, which is where we really like to shine. Tom does a great job filming this stuff and it's just a lot of fun. And subscribing if you're new is a good idea because we put out videos like this every day. You know, if you like games, maybe you should stick around. Just stay here. We'll take care of you. But thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.